Hi, I'm Laureen, the small group leader for the incredible rising 11th grade girls. I love those girls. I was asked to do a devotional and was given the following prompt. What has your mind changed about because you follow Jesus? So the short answer to that question would be so many things. But after thinking about it further, I realized that many of the things that I've changed my mind about can be linked to two specific lessons that I've learned from the example of Jesus. But before I start, I think it's necessary to give you a little context of where I've come from. I grew up in the church. In fact, my father was a missionary in Cape Town, South Africa, where I was born and lived most of my life until the age of 22. My early view of Christianity was a very judgmental, arrogant one. That it was a set of rules and requirements that had to be followed flawlessly, like a checklist. I was very quick to judge others and pretty arrogant about my rightness. And yet at the same time, I was scared to death that I would fall short and burn in hell for eternity. It was only when I realized that I do fall short every single day that I started to understand the grace that God gives me through Jesus, and that I had no right to be arrogant and judgy towards others because the actual Son of God wasn't. As a high schooler, I read these words from Paul in 1 Corinthians 11, verse 1, and you should imitate me as I imitate Christ. And it really resonated with me. I started to wonder if I could say that with confidence. So I started to pay closer attention to how Christ behaved. And that was a game changer for me. The first thing that stood out to me was his humility. He never elevated himself above others. Instead, he lived the life of a servant. He said in Mark 10, verse 45, that he didn't come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. There's so many verses in Scripture that address humility, and a common thread that runs through many of them is how the humble will be exalted or lifted up. In Matthew 23, verse 12, it says, "For those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted." And then again in 1 Peter 5, verse 6, it says, "Humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time." And then the ultimate example of humility, when Jesus humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death on a cross. In Philippians 2:8, you can read that. The second thing I noticed goes hand in hand with humility. He loved everyone unconditionally, no strings attached. It didn't matter if it was a prostitute, a tax collector, a leper, a crazy possessed person, someone who was about to betray him, or someone he knew would pretend not to know him. It didn't matter if it was someone who didn't agree with him, or someone who was trying to trick him with leading questions, or if it was a blatant sinner, or someone who told lies about him, or even someone who wanted to kill him. He loved them all and showed it in the way he interacted with them. He lovingly showed patience and kindness in all circumstances. Love is also talked about a lot in the Bible. And just a few of the verses I picked out are, first one is in John 13:34. It says, "A new command I give to you, love one another as I have loved you, so you must love one another." So it's not a suggestion, it's a command. We've got to love one another. And then in Luke 6:27, it says, "But to you who are listening, I say, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you." I don't know about you, but I have a real hard time with this one sometimes. In 1 John 4, verse 19, it says, "We love because he first loved us." He was the perfect example of how to love unconditionally. So wow, these are some really big shoes to fill. And I'm nowhere close to that yet, but it's something that I'm working on. So in response to the question, what has your mind changed about because you follow Jesus? I would have to say that I've changed my mind about how I try to influence people and point them towards God with humility and love, especially those who believe differently from me. And one day I hope that I'll be able to say with confidence, imitate me just as I imitate Christ.